Welcome to Working Progress. This is the podcast where we dive into strategies for success and journey towards progress. Today, we are exploring the power of combinations and adaptations, how understanding the blend of our behavioral styles, including the often overlooked low side of DISC, can transform the way we lead, collaborate, and communicate. Joining us is Lisa Bouchard, a valued TTI success partner. Lisa brings a wealth of experience in assessments, coaching, and helping organizations unlock the potential of their people. In our conversation, we will talk about her background, her perspective on the differences between the assessment tools available in the market, and what makes TTI's unique approach stand out. We will explore why DISC is more than just your highest score, how the low side can offer surprising insights, and why the adapted graph is such a powerful tool for understanding workplace behavior. We will also discuss how Lisa uses DISC blends to create impactful coaching moments and how organizations can use these insights to adapt, grow, and thrive. So let's get started. Lisa, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Of course. Well, let's get into it. Can you share a little bit about your background and how you first got started with assessments?
Sure. I have kind of an interesting and varied background, but it really, when I found what I really loved, the assessments were the thing that really brought me back. So in high school, I took a college level psych course and fell in love with human behavior. Totally changed what I wanted to go to college for. In college, I took a class about human behavior in the workplace, and I was hooked. I was just so passionate about what made people tick, what formed great relationships, what hindered relationships. So that was really the thing that had me. I didn't have enough money to pay for college, so I waitressed through college. And boy, was that a working place to understand and get a lot of insights about relationships.
Yeah.
And when I left college, I didn't go into psychology. I actually managed retail stores for about 13 years. And again, what a place to learn about relationships and results. And after about 13 years, I was hired in a consulting firm. And I was hired as an administrative assistant to 10 consultants in the consulting firm.
Wow.
And the first thing they did was give me a profile when I applied for the job. And I was hooked because it really tied together for me what the passion was and a science behind the passion. I absolutely loved it. And after about 2 months, the founder came up to me and he said, "We got to talk." And I said, "What?" He goes, "We love you, but you're probably the worst administrative assistant we've ever had." And I said, "That's about the kindest thing anybody said to me. I know I'm terrible at this job. I'm just not what I like." And he goes, "You learn quick. People like you. Do you think you'd ever want to facilitate the assessments that we do?" And I said, "Oh my God, I love that DISC thing that you do." And he taught me to facilitate. And that was the start of my career with assessments. And it really brought me back to the love of assessments in the workplace.
That's a great story, Lisa. And I love how, especially as a waitress, you really do learn how to deal with different, all kinds of behavioral styles as a waitress. So can you tell me what drew you to TTI? What has your journey as a partner looked like with TTI? Because you've been with us for a while, Lisa.
30 years.
Oh,
30 years this year. So yeah, a long time. And originally, when I became, a first level consultant in a consulting firm that I work with, they sent me to a conference. And I just fell in love with, because I learned about all the assessments that they had. And I started meeting people and collaborating with them and learning new things and new ways to apply what I had learned. So that was my first introduction. And because of some of the things I learned at the conference from other people, I brought some new things to the firm that I was at. And one of them was using DISC with hiring. And long story short, they made me a partner because we had brought in quite a bit of revenue and new clients using that, and I became a partner. And after 13 years, I decided to leave and start my own business. And TTI, all along the way, I saw them TTI and the assessments, but also the partners that were distributors of the product just helped me grow all along the way. So I really found that was my connection. And of course, you meet a lot of people. One of the people that I met was my mentor for a number of years. And then we became colleagues together. And he got very sick, and I helped take over his business and run his business for him. And when he passed away, I purchased his business to carry on his legacy. And I also have a mastermind of women from TTI. We call ourselves the Wonder Woman after William Marston's comic books. And, and it's just such a
it fits very well, actually.
yeah. Yeah. And it's just such a great community to collaborate with people, and the tools and things are top notch. So that was my journey with TTI through, going from just starting to all the way to owning my own business and growing that business. So it's been wonderful.
I love that. So can you, what are some of the differences that you have actually seen between the TTI assessments and then some of the other tools that are out there on the market? Because we are not the only DISC assessment out there. So what is it that you have seen that really makes TTI stand out?
I think I think it's two things for me that really make it stand out. And one is that I know we're talking about DISC today.
Yes.
DISC is not the only thing that TTI has. And I think the other thing is really the research and reliability and studies. I think many companies that distribute DISC, I think the thing that really makes TTI stand out is DISC is how you do things, but you also have 12 driving force, and that's why you do things, which will change and drive your style. And you have emotional intelligence, which adds a whole nother layer to the whole human being. TTI looks at just a number of tools that they have when we get into acumen, looking at your thinking filters and DNA and your competencies. And I've used the stress quotient. So many companies and people are stressed to understand stress, and they have 360. So it's the array of tools that they have and how they combine together to, assess and understand the full person. And I think the second thing where the assessments and tools really stand out is the research that they do, constant research and validity updates and technical reports. And I think those things are so important because it gives so much credibility to the tools that we use. So those are the main things.
Absolutely. Like we always say, DISC again is how we do what we do, but the more sciences you add in, the driving forces, the emotional intelligence, you just get such a bigger picture of who somebody is. So I would have to agree with you on that. That is one of the things that makes TTI definitely stand out. So one of the things I know is that at TTI, we talk about the low side of DISC. Because we're focused so much on the high side of things, but what about the low side? So can you talk about why that's such a critical part of the story or the journey, and how the conversation really changes with each client?
Yeah. I think the thing with the lows, first, I delivered DISC for 2 years before I ever heard anybody talk about a low. Now, again, this was 30 years ago. I remember going to a session and my jaw being on the floor. So I was like, oh my God, there's lows. They're just as important in the highs. Like, we're missing half of this science. Like, this is so important. And a lot of the other tools in the market really don't talk about the lows. I think the reason why it's so important for me and the work that I do with my clients is every company I go into, everybody's just busy and overwhelmed. They're trying to do twice as much with half the people. And when people are busy and someone approaches them in a way that they don't really like, they're rude, they're too aggressive, they talk too much, they're too slow, they ask too many questions, we tend to look at the part that annoys us, the 10% that annoys us, and we miss the 90% of what's really great about people. And the thing that I see with the highs and the lows is the highs and the lows really need each other. When you look at each of those styles, they balance each other out. You look at a high D, how they solve problems and challenges. It's aggressive and assertive to jump in and get it done. Well, a low D is reflective. They think about it. They ask questions. They collaborate, so the low D will slow the high D down to make the best choice in a problem or challenge, but the high D will speed the low D up to be able to do it quicker, and it's the same with all four of them. Highs, how you influence people, to your point of view. High eyes influence through their optimism. It's going to be great, fabulous, woohoo! And low eyes are the more realistic people. Like they're looking at, well, did you think of this? And did you miss this? And the high eyes, we need that to ground us. But the low eyes don't want to be the cheerleader and promote everything. So there's such a great partnership between the two. And that's true of all four of the factors, what they do to really help each other. So that's
like you say, the balance, right? It's the yin and the yang. So it is important to know those high scores, but it's also one of those things that the lower scores, they really do ground us.
Yeah, and they're just as many strengths in the lows as the high. And I think because it's measuring the same, we always talk about D's and S's are different and I's and C's are different, and they are. Because they come from very different, places about people and tasks and fast and slow pace. But when you look at each of those four factors, exactly what it measures is opposite. You look at a high S, how do we measure pace and change and consistency? Well, they're slow and steady and like to focus and follow through. Low S is multitask, juggle the balls, get it all done, hurry up. One speeds one up, one slows one down. Different situations call for both. And the same with the C. How we deal with rules and procedures, constraints set by others. One's very compliant. This is the way that we do it. This is how we do it. We're going to follow the rules. It's going to be perfect. Lots of detail. The other one's like, out of the box, throw it at the wall. Let's see what happens. Try something new and different. And they both need a little of each other. So I think when they understand the lows, instead of having that person annoy them, instead of pushing people away, they actually start pulling people in because they see that the opposite is what I need and what can help me. So it's the big thing that I really see with the lows.
I completely agree with you. And one of the things that you talked about was when we look at all four behavioral styles. So one of the things that we emphasize is that you're not just your highest score. You truly are a blend of all four behavioral styles. So how do you help clients understand the power of that unique combination? Because again, we see, okay, you're a high D with that high red. That's what we focus on. But we shouldn't, right, Lisa? What's your take on that?
Well, nothing makes me sadder than when somebody comes out of a disc session, all they say is, I'm a high D. No, you're a high D with a mid I and a low S and a high C. Like you're a combination of all four in different degrees and different intensities. And if we just focus on one, it so minimizes the places that we can partner with others and the places that we can utilize those. So I always say, when you really think about it, if you just look at the D, we'll just use that as an example, right? Mm-hmm. There can be a D with a high I, a high S, and a high C. That's 4, right? Or there can be a D with a low I, low S, low C. So there's actually 6 different combinations that D can have. So if you understand that about people on your team, it so expands, again, how you can partner with them, how you can utilize them. It's not just, I'm aggressive and assertive and I get things done really quick. Well, if you're a D with an I, yeah, you do that, but you form a relationship first and you can kind of influence them and form a relationship and get it done. If you're an I with an S, you might want to get it done quick, but the S is going to like slow down, think it through, make sure you're doing the right thing. They're going to take your great ideas and actually follow through with them. Like you're going to be able to do it and follow through. I call that the go, 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 whoa, whoa, whoa style. It's when they have the S combination, the D wants to go, the S is going, whoa, 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 whoa. We got to think about this one a little bit. A D with a C combination. The D wants to get it done now, but the C wants to get it done right. So not only do they do it quickly, but they do it perfectly. So when you understand that about someone, you start to see them differently. There's more levels and variations of the style. And it's the same with the lows. You have a high D with a low I. Well, the low I is you're going to just see like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And the low I is going to look for, whoa, what's missing? Because they're looking at the holes and how to do things. So they make sure that the D isn't making a decision. A high D with a low S, Ds are fast anyways. Multitask and get a lot done. A high D with a low S, it is hard to keep up with them. Their style is just moving. And you look at a high D with a low C. High Ds are independent, they're risk-taking, they're pioneering. Low Cs have all those combinations too. So this is really a style who can take off, be independent and think out of the box. So it just so expands how people see the person, which again, to me, forms different ways to connect with them and utilize them in an organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And you gave some great examples, especially with the high D, because that seems to always, the higher D tends to have a little bit of a bias sometimes. So like you say, some of that lower side might soften it or kind of explain why they do things a specific way. So we talked about the different blends, and how do you approach conversations about the DISC blends in a way that resonates with both individuals and teams? Because if it's just the high side that they have to focus on, that's great. That's the 4 behavioral styles. But when you get into 4 high styles, 4 low styles, how does that play out? Because then that's a lot of information. So how do you approach that conversation?
Yeah, because when you think of it, there's 24 combinations. There's 6 for each spell. So it's like, that's too much to remember. But if you go to the very simplistic part, when we're working with teams to kind of take that information simply and actually use it, generally the combinations will exaggerate something or they'll balance something, right?
Okay.
So the example, like the high D, low S, well, it exaggerates the speed in that. But the high D, high I, the I minimizes the assertiveness of the D. So we just, when they understand what each of those measure and understand what they are, high and low, it's very easy for them to see, does that combination factor minimize or balance or exaggerate or balance the other factor? And then they can really see how that combination, kind of where their sweet spot is and all of the things that they offer.
Okay. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about the adapted graph, because that is one of the things that a lot of our competitors just have one graph. We've got 2. We have the natural graph and the adapted graph. So why do you think why is the adapted graph so important in coaching or training conversations?
Well, first thing is, as you said, a lot of companies don't have it. And to me, the reason we use assessment is for professional development. And there's actually 2 different types of adaptations. There's a strategic adaptation where you proactively, strategically are thinking about what your job is asking you to do to be more successful. It's a well thought out approach. And when we're coaching people, we're coaching them to choose their adaptations to be more successful. So that's the strategic. There's also reactive adaptations. And that's when something's not going all that great in the environment. And when it's not going all that great, we sometimes change how we're going to approach that and react to it. Generally not thought out, generally something that doesn't serve you. So when we understand that there could be 2 types of adaptations, when we're coaching them to choose the ones that are going to serve them and be very aware of the adaptations they might be making that just are not working and could stress them out pretty much and get them into trouble. So we kind of make a distinction about those. Yeah.
So kind of we talk about, are you adapting to survive or are you adapting to succeed?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You're trying to excel or survive in this particular thing. So you just think of when you're working to coach an individual, just that simple understanding that many of the other profiles doesn't even provide, and how valuable that is for them to see things in a different way.
And I'm sure it also, as a coach, gives you a path to go down versus, okay, are you adapting to succeed? So we have a lot of positive things to focus on, or are we adapting to survive, which, as you said, some stress? How are we coping with that? So do you coach differently based off of that as well?
Yeah. And one thing I think it's really important, like I can look at graphs and see an adaptation, and I can't tell you why you adapted, but I can ask you. And when you ask, so here's something that's interesting. It used to be that you're pretty optimistic and outgoing. You saw the good and what's right in everything. And now, your eyes gone way down. It seems like you're being a little bit more critical, skeptical, maybe a little more negative or judgmental. So why is that? And in the answer will tell you if that's strategic. My job's asking me to do that. I can't be everybody's best friend. I really have to not be overly optimistic. I'm missing things that I should be doing. Or they'll tell you if it's reactive. Something's going on in the environment and I don't feel valued or included and I'm not very happy about it. So it's really, and I have asking questions when you're coaching to have them describe why that adaptation is happening, and then questions to see, if that's a great adaptation because it's going to get you what you want, or if it's an adaptation that you might want to think about adapting a different way.
So what are some of the common shifts that you see between the natural and adapted graphs? And what do they tell you about a person's work environment?
Yeah. Well, when it's strategic, this is where it gets complicated too, right? Because they're strategic and each DIS and C can go up and down strategically. But again, if we go back to the basic science, what is it measuring and where is it going? It makes it simpler. Like an example, again, if you go to the D, strategically a D going up, I'm a new management position. I got to make decisions. I got to have control. I got to get things done. A D going down might be a new management position. And you go, I'm not telling everybody what to do to start. I'm going to step back and think a little before I jump in would be common. So an I going up would be your job's asking you to be more outgoing and connective and positive, and I going down is to think about things. So it's just really looking for what are each of those and how they're adapting. So there's a lot of combinations that we see, and there's also combinations where you see one factor go up and one factor go down together. So it's not even just the simple ones. A common one I see that can be misinterpreted is an I going down and a C going up.
Okay.
And if it's strategic, the I is going down because your job is asking you. You need to influence more through logic and look for what's missing. A C going up, we want to make sure we're following the rules and being detail oriented. But if it's reactive, a lot of times an I going down means I just not feeling the love here, not really liking how I'm being treated. And the C goes up out of fear, worry, and concern about how it's going to be. So it could be completely different when you see those combinations. S going down, C going up is fairly common.
Okay.
Strategically, I think most companies are trying to do twice as much with half the people. So you better pick up the pace, juggle more balls. That's what makes you valuable. A C going up is maybe concern about, am I going to drop a ball? Is this too much? Can I handle this? So we see that combination a lot.
So how big of an adaptation do you typically look for?
It has to be over 10 points to actually be observable or visible. The larger the adaptation, the more you'll see the change in behavior. And if it's crossed the middle line or the energy line, you'll actually see a bigger change. So that's when it flip-flops.
So can you share a success story or an example where the adapted graph brought a key insight to one of your coaching clients?
Yeah, this was a big one, and it impacted me for a long time. I was actually doing a session and we were talking about adaptations, and people were looking at their own natural and adapted graph and thinking about it. And I looked over and saw a man shaking. And I was like, hey, it's about time for a break. Why don't we take a break? And I went over and I said, are you okay? He goes, no, I am not okay. And I said, let's go chat for a while. And he's literally shaking. I go, what's going on? He was an IT professional who was very successful. He was put into He was put into a management position where they wanted him to be a DI. And he had adapted to a DI. And he's like, I hate my job. I don't like what I'm doing. I'm miserable. So I coached him and he decided to go back to his old job.
Wow.
And the craziest thing happened. I went to a 4th of July party, and this woman comes up to me and it's like bear hugging me, like, oh my God, I love you. I love you. And I'm kind of like, does anybody know who this woman is? I don't know who she is. And I said to me, I apologize. I don't know. I don't think we've met. And she pointed to the man I was just talking about, and with tears in her eyes, she said, you gave me my husband back.
Oh.
And I said, what? And she goes, he was so unhappy for 2 years. And after he met you and you coached him, I have my husband back. He's happy again. And it was just the greatest experience. And then I went to the head of HR and I said, I think we're promoting people out of jobs. And I don't think it's right. So I started a pilot program where before someone went into a management position, we did DISC. We also did driving forces with them, but we did DISC. And we said, here, we benchmark what that position was going to ask them to do. We mapped their profile against it and talked to them and had sessions with them about how do you feel about changing? Because we see this is one of the elements you might have to change to be successful. The greatest thing about that is about 20 to 25% of the people that went through that program decided not to go into management.
Wow.
But the 75 that did went in being crystal clear about what they needed to do to be successful. Their expectations had been set. They had coaches to help them change if they needed to change to be successful. So that was a pretty neat one from understanding about adaptations. It made a difference not only in a person's life, but it made a huge difference in the organization as well.
Well, that was kind of my next question, and the story about the individual gave me goosebumps, Lisa, and that's really what these assessments can do. Is it gives people the verbiage to kind of help explain why they are adapting or shifting in specific ways. So that's a great story. And to your point, you changed somebody's life. And as a coach, I'm sure that was just very rewarding for you.
Yeah.
So how do you help organizations when it comes to the adaptation in their leadership or communication style? So really, how do you help them adapt to be successful?
I really feel, and I've always felt, that relationships are the key to any results that we have. I think that's pretty basic. And I ask a simple question, especially to leaders, and it's, are people looking forward to their next interaction with you? It doesn't have to be all flowers and roses and wonderful. It could have been a really hard, contentious conversation, but how were you in that conversation? And I ask leaders to true themselves up against that, to really think about it. You get off a phone call, you get out of a meeting, you're doing a performance appraisal. Take 2 minutes to say, if I was that person, would they look forward to the next time they interact with me? Because if you're getting in the way of trust with someone and you're interacting in a way that's hindering the relationship, reputation is so important, right? We want to make sure we're not doing that. And then when we get them to see that you really have to be conscious of how it is you communicate to other people and what's important to them. And we get them to be more aware of that and actually take the methodology of DISC and understand other people's communication styles and what they need and how they can change and adapt to that. So that's always the question I ask. Are people looking forward to their next interaction? And I always say, you can tell somebody's reputation by a caller ID. You know, the caller ID rings and you see it's Bill and you're like, oh my God, it's Bill. I'm so busy, but I love Bill. I'm picking up the phone, right? Or the caller ID rings and it's Bill and you're like, yeah, no way. Send him to voicemail. So we really have people consciously think about how can you adapt your communication to form really, really great relationships, which will have you produce really great results.
That's a great question, Lisa. I think I'm going to steal that actually and really focus on, okay, I just had that interaction. Would I want to interact with me again? I love that because it really makes you take a step back.
I have to do it all the time. I get off the phone and I'll be like, yep, I think I need to call and apologize. It's not very nice. But it really makes you just think when you finish something. Like I might have been stressed or in a time crunch or something, but the other person doesn't know that. They just knew I didn't treat them in the kindest, most patient way I should have. And they remember that. So I do a lot of apologize.
At least you're aware, Lisa, and at least you do it.
It's all about the awareness, right?
So last question, and this is kind of a fun one. What is your favorite combination of DISC styles to coach and why?
Well, I'm a high I, so I love coaching all the styles. Honestly, one of my favorite ones, probably because it's easiest, is the DI style. I
Okay.
think they're open to feedback. Like a lot of people won't challenge a D.
Yeah.
If you challenge a D, they're all about results and urgency. So if you want to coach a D and just say, hey, are you open to some feedback? I saw you do something at the meeting the other day that totally shut everybody down from being in action. It'll be like, what? What? Me? And if you can coach them based on the very thing that's important to them, they get big ears, and D's will change. And if they have an I and they're excited about the change, they're the easiest ones to coach because they get right into action about it. So that's one of the styles I love coaching. And I think the other one I really enjoy, because I'm S too, I have I and S both at 95, are S's. And it's probably because of the difference it made in my life and maybe even an SI combination. I
Okay.
think they have so much to say. It's such a thinking style and a generating style, but they're so afraid of confrontation. The I's want to be liked, and the S's just don't want to get into an argument. That they
Yeah.
often don't speak their truth or their gold, and people miss out on it. So I think a lot of times when we coach S's, they start to get the confidence to have a voice so they feel good. They start speaking up more, and what they say always makes a difference. It's such an intuitive style, so they really make a difference when they speak up. So it's really fun to coach S's and see them kind of get their shine.
So what's the behavioral style that you sometimes go, oh boy, this might be difficult?
I would say C's.
Mhm.
It's hard for them to get feedback. And I understand why it is. Like what I love about them is they're perfectionists because I have
Yes.
a perfection bone in my body. So I love that they're perfectionists and everything has to be perfect, but they can get a little defensive
Yeah.
because they take it personal, so it's really hard for them sometimes to get the feedback. I usually kid them though. I say, so like, let's just talk about this. You're probably the first one to give critical feedback, and you seem not to take it when other people give it to you. So a little bit harder to coach, but yeah.
Well, that thank you so much, Lisa. That actually brings us to another episode of Working Progress. Again, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your passion for the assessments, and your practical insights into how the combinations and adaptations can really deepen our understanding of human behavior. If you found today's conversation valuable, we would love for you to subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with a colleague or fellow leader. Your support helps us continue bringing these powerful conversations to life. And remember, understanding your behavioral style is just the beginning. Real growth comes from embracing the full blend of who you are, recognizing how you adapt to your environment, and using that awareness to communicate, lead, and collaborate more effectively. As always, thank you for listening. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep making progress. Take care, everyone.